Why the rest of the world knows Americans are brainwashed. Thinks Americans are brainwashed. Sorry. All right, this one's coming from Holy Kool-Aid. This video has been recommended quite a few times, at least 3 or 4. You guys know I'm gonna come around and hit it if it's recommended that much. Should be fun. I might get a little, you know what? No, I'm not gonna get embarrassed because honestly, I'm a human before I'm an American, so I think that is much more important. You guys know how I feel about things, so without further ado, let's find out why the rest of the world thinks Americans are brainwashed.
There is some wild propaganda that Americans are taught and
he's
don't
American.
even realize it's propaganda. Now, I should preface this by stating that I am an American. I love my country. My family goes all the way back to Jamestown. My grandfather fought in World War II. I was born in Los Angeles. I went to university in Texas. I was raised singing the Star-Spangled Banner and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I am about as American as it gets. Well, besides these guys. But I've also spent the last decade studying cults, dogma, and religious extremism, and thought control. And as someone who has lived in over a dozen countries and traveled to more than 35 of them, I've started noticing some extremely troubling forms of propaganda that Americans are taught from childhood.
Right off the bat, I have noticed the same thing over the last year of doing this channel. A lot of the stuff that I've learned has really opened my eyes to some of the propaganda that was instilled into me when I was a kid. And it's so weird. It's so weird. You know, there's certain things that I still agree with that America does. A lot that I disagree with, but it is wild once you start experiencing more cultures and more people that viewpoint that you originally had kind of starts to go away, you know.
Things that people in free developed democratic countries overseas find absolutely bizarre, and things that most Americans never question because we've been marinating in it since birth. And look,
it's got to be the basics. Let me think here. Not free healthcare, guns, Pledge of Allegiance. I know he kind of already mentioned that one. What else would be some crazy things? I guess just the way that Americans are so attached to politics. That might be something, how it's so split and how passionate people get about it. I don't know. Let's see where he goes.
Every country has its own brand of propaganda. I'm not trying to pretend that America is uniquely evil here, but what makes American propaganda so effective is that most of us don't even realize it exists. We think that propaganda is something that happens in North Korea or Soviet bases, posters of dictators and state-controlled media.
It does.
We don't
That is
recognize
propaganda.
it when it's sung at football games and printed on a bumper sticker. So here are 7 forms of propaganda that you probably didn't even realize that you grew up with if you're an American.
Sweet. Let's go.
Number 1, US-centric education. American history is extraordinarily short. We are talking a
Man, I have talked about this so many times.
few centuries compared to civilizations that span millennia. And yet, if you grew up in an American public school, you would think that the United States was the center of human history. Geography classes often aren't taught at all, and world history courses, when they are taught, are basically how does the rest of the planet relate to America. The Vietnam War is taught.
Okay, really quick. I would say that not everything that we learned is kind of focused around the US. I do remember learning quite a bit of world history, whether it was ancient Rome. I remember going back, of course, learning all about the pyramids. We do a huge thing on that. A lot of Asian history, like Japan, going back into the time of the samurais. I do remember some of that. All the Mongols. Yeah, but there is quite a bit of U.S. history that is primarily focused on, and then you may switch for a month and do world history, and then you just immediately go back to U.S. history.
War is taught as a war for freedom. Westward expansion is framed as brave pioneers taming a wild frontier, not as the systematic displacement and genocide of indigenous peoples who've been living there for thousands of years. World War II, Americans swoop in and save the day, with little mention of the roughly 27 million
crazy.
Soviets who died on the Eastern Front doing the bulk of the fighting against Hitler. Now, compare that to how other countries teach history. In much of Europe, kids actually learn global.
Hold on, really quick. I want to go back and look at this. Death toll as a percentage of each country's 1939 population. All right, so we're doing percentages. If we were doing raw numbers, the U.S. would be a little bit higher up. Also, we weren't involved as long as the rest of a lot of these countries, so makes sense.
History. They study African kingdoms, Asian dynasties, Middle Eastern contributions to science and mathematics. They learn about colonialism for what it actually is, not heroic adventure, but exploitation. When I talk to Americans who are traveling abroad for the first time, I'm often shocked at how little they know about the rest of the world. And that's not by accident. A nation which doesn't teach its citizens about the world produces citizens who don't question their own nation's role in it. Number 2, the Cold War binary. If you grew up in America anytime after 1950, you absorbed one of the most effective propaganda frameworks ever constructed. Communism equals evil, capitalism equals freedom. Full stop. No nuance, no discussion, just a clean binary where one side wears white hats and the other side is a cartoon villain. What they don't teach you is that during the Cold War, the United States overthrew democratically elected governments around the world simply because the governments leaned left. In 1953,
Mainly
the
in South
CIA helped
America,
orchestrate a coup against Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, because he nationalized Iran's oil industry. In 1954, the US toppled Guatemala's president, Arbenz, because his land reforms threatened the profits of United Fruit Company. In 1970,
Crazy ass story. I remember learning about that. Not in school, outside of school. Most of my learning that I've done has been outside of school.
the overthrow of Chile's Salvador Allende, a democratically elected socialist, and replaced him with Augusto Pinochet, a brutal military dictator who tortured and murdered thousands. The Congo, Brazil, Indonesia, it's all the same playbook. America claimed to be defending democracy while systematically destroying it in order to exploit country after country. This all is recent history, and this binary thinking is still alive and well. If you suggest universal healthcare in America, watch how quickly someone calls you a communist. Propose free—
Oh, I get so much shit for this. I've had a couple of conversations with people that are definitely against socialized healthcare and trying to explain to them, I'm like, no, like it really can work. There's just a lot of other moving parts that need to be in place for it to work. Like you have to have a high trust society. You have to have a very cohesive society and a shared culture. If you have all of that, you're able to achieve socialized healthcare. It's just, that's not America at all because it's just a massive blending pot of cultures. But I'd love to see it get there and us be able to have it. It's just, I don't think it'll ever happen. But I do get pushback on this all the time, man. And it's so weird because if I say something that's right-leaning, the left attacks me. And then if I say something that's left-leaning, the right attacks me. And I'm just standing in the middle, constantly just being barraged. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to like one ideology.
public university education, something that dozens of thriving democracies already provide, and suddenly you're a Marxist.
Damn, can you imagine
the Cold
if the
War
US had
ended
free
over 30
education,
years ago, but the
college?
propaganda framework it built is still alive and kicking. If you want to start breaking free from propaganda, one of the most effective and powerful things that you can do is to expose yourself to other cultures, other perspectives, and other languages. My dad was a language teacher, and I grew up multilingual, and I can tell you firsthand that learning another language doesn't just teach you new words, it gives you an entirely different lens through which to view the world. Which is why I love today's sponsor, LingoPie. LingoPie takes a completely different approach, memorizing books from the far close so you can that absorb the language before they language or 55. Number 3, and go see how it works for yourself. Number 3, the land of the free myth. Americans are told from birth that the United States is the freest country on earth. It's in the songs, it's on the bumper stickers. It's baked into the nation's identity so deeply that questioning it feels almost heretical. But is it true? Well, let's look at the data. On the Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index, the US doesn't crack the top 50. It ranks
On the what?
on the Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index. The
Reporters Without Borders. All right, I don't know them, but
US doesn't crack the top 50. It ranks 50.
Okay, guys, let's be real here. There's no way that Sierra Leone has more freedom than the USA. Ghana doesn't. I'm on board with saying that the U.S., Americans are not as free as they absolutely think they are. They're actually extremely controlled. But saying that somewhere like Ghana is more free than the U.S., it's a little crazy. But for the sake of the argument, we'll go through and
7th in the world, just below Sierra Leone. On the Cato Institute's Human Freedom Index, and keep in mind, the Cato Institute is a libertarian think tank, not some leftist outfit, multiple countries outrank America in both personal and economic freedom. The United States incarcerates more people per capita than almost every other country on the planet. More than...
Do you think that if you have... I'm not advocating that this is like the way that it is, but if you technically have like more freedom, wouldn't there be more incarcerations because people would feel more free to go out and do what they want to do and then eventually break laws? The incarceration problem in the US is just getting bigger. So I'm not saying that like people should be incarcerated more, but let's see. I kind of want to see where he's going with this.
China, more than Russia, Iran, or North Korea. The land of the free locks up more of its
More than Russia is crazy.
China, more than Russia, Iran, or North Korea. The land of the free locks up more of its own citizens than almost every authoritarian regime on earth, and a disproportionate number of them are Black and Latino. This is not what freedom looks like. It is a system designed to warehouse people. But it goes deeper. A handful of corporations control vast swaths of American industry, from media to agriculture to healthcare and tech. These corporations aren't just influencing a little bit of government policy, they're writing the policy. Politicians respond to donors and lobbyists, not constituents. Hell, there was a Princeton study which actually found that the preferences of American voters have a near zero statistical impact on whether a policy gets passed or not. But,
dude, our politicians are fucking garbage. All of them. I'm sure a lot of people in different countries feel that way about their politicians. Like, if I could just completely get rid of all of them and get real people in there with a snap of my fingers, I would do it. I feel like some people even get into politics and will go in, I don't want to say innocent, but, you know, they'll go in with an objective and then they just get corrupted in our system, which is extremely fun.
preferences of economic elites, big businesses, and organized interest groups are strongly correlated with what policies actually get passed into law. In other words, your politicians don't care what you want, unless you're a billionaire. Elections are largely bought and paid for. Gerrymandering carves up districts so that the politicians can choose their voters rather than the other way around like it should be in a free democracy. Voter suppression laws target...
Gerrymandering is crazy. It kind of makes sense that you need to do it, but sometimes the way that they do it and they like write the lines, it'll be like a little strip. And I'm going to be honest, the Democrats are a little worse than this than the Republicans. They're also bad at doing it, but like it'll be like a little narrow line going through the entire state and then loops out to like touch a big city. And they're like, this is the district now. And it's like, what the can we just make like squares throughout the entire state so it's like even? But no, they can't do that.
Communities least likely to vote for the people in power, and the two-party system has become a self-reinforcing trap that incentivizes extremism over representation. We are taught, and this is hardcore propaganda, that America's electoral system is the best. Well, except when our guy loses, of course. But there is a much better electoral system. It is called ranked choice voting. And the only people who prefer our current system over ranked choice are those who are financially incentivized against freedom and democracy. Here's how it works. With ranked choice, instead of picking just one candidate and hoping
So Australia does this, I think.
for the best, you rank out your preferences with your top choice at the top and your least choice at the bottom. If no one wins a majority, the candidate with the fewest votes gets eliminated, and the people who voted for them have those votes redistributed to their second choice. You
Makes
keep
sense.
going
I like
until
that.
someone actually has majority support. It rewards candidates who appeal broadly rather than those who energize the extremes. It reduces what's known as the spoiler effect and creates a better reflection of what voters actually want. There are already several US cities and states which have already adopted ranked choice voting, and it's the norm in countries like Australia and Ireland. But most Americans
Ireland
have
does
never
it?
even heard of it, because the two parties currently in power have zero incentive to tell you about the system that would threaten their grip, and they have every incentive to criticize it.
You should run aggressively against ranked choice voting. It is a big...
Number 4, America's stupidly
I really ranked choice voting is something I could get on board with. I think it's a good idea. The biggest problem is the two-party system. You have to have more than a two-party system, and nobody's I mean, we have a couple other parties. You have like the Green Party, you have the Libertarian Party, which is the only party I've ever voted for back in 2016. I think so. That was, who was it? Was it Gary Johnson, I think, was voting? I couldn't handle either Hillary or Trump at the time. I'm like, this is just too fucking easy. They're both nuts. So I voted for third party, which was, Gary Johnson. I think it was Gary Johnson at that time, or Evan McMullen, maybe? I can't remember. It's been so long. Anyway. All right, we're getting on military budget now. This is going to make me really pissed off.
Big military budget. The US spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined.
It's fucking
Let that
absurd.
sink in. More than China, Russia, the UK, Saudi Arabia, Germany, France, Japan, South Korea, and Australia put together. Now, Americans are taught that this spending is about protecting freedom and defending the free world.
Bro, we're covered by 2 oceans. Like, if you want to spend some money on military to protect the country, put the military on the borders of the country. Then, literally, we have the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. It's not like we're like smack dab in the middle of the Middle East, or even in Europe with so many other countries around us. Like, we're literally almost on an island by ourselves with Canada and Mexico. But yet we have to spend 10 times the amount on military. It's crazy.
Sure, a reasonable national defense is necessary, but the vast majority of this budget doesn't go to defense. It funds over 750 military bases in at least
Across the
80
world.
countries. It funds interventions, regime changes, drone programs, and the maintenance of a global military empire. Meanwhile, American roads are crumbling, bridges are collapsing, the healthcare system.
Yeah, really quick, I have to get on a rant about this because I know you guys get news from outside of the US, and I have no idea what it says. It's probably absolutely insane. I will say that even the people on the right, like a lot of people that where I live around are on the right, are extremely pissed off with the stuff that's going on in Iran. With Trump, the Iran war. I was a little blown away by it, like how annoyed and mad they are at it. I was like, oh, okay, so now you're mad at this thing because I guess he promised no new wars. I was really checked out in the last election, so I have no idea. But it's a little surprising to actually see a little bit of light hitting them.
Bankrupts families. Teachers buy their own classroom supplies. Student debt has surpassed $1.7 trillion, and millions of Americans can't afford basic prescriptions. Other countries, meanwhile, invest their resources differently. Universal health care, free or affordable higher education, robust public transit, paid parental leave, affordable child care, and as a result, their citizens are measurably healthier, better educated, less stressed, and by many metrics, happier. This isn't speculative, it's what the data consistently shows. Historians have a term for what happens when an empire pours its resources into military expansion while its domestic foundations rot. Imperial overstretch. And it's how empires collapse. The Romans did it, the British did it, the Soviets did it, and if you look at the trajectory, America is running headfirst over the same cliff.
I think that America is running head first over the same cliff. I just don't know. A lot of people are trying to guess that it's happening extremely fast, like within the next 5 or 10 years. I've seen some graphs online. We did a video the other day on, is the EU turning into an empire? They said that the US is on a, if you're looking at the graph and 1 is the start, the peak is 5 at the top of a superpower, and then 10 is the very bottom, the full crash. I've seen people guess that we're at like 7, 8, 9, like almost down to the crash. And I'm like, I just don't think it's that far yet. I think we've crossed the peak the US has and is now on the downward trajectory. But if it took 250 years up to get to 5, it's like, how long is it going to take it for it to fall all the way down and crash and burn? 5 to 10 years from now, I'm not too sure. I don't think it's that quick.
Number 5, the Pledge of Allegiance. Having
Pledge of
children
Allegiance.
stand up every single
I still remember this. I pledge allegiance to the, like, that's so weird. Like, you're pledging your allegiance to a flag. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying, like, I'm proud to be an American. For someone to say, I'm proud to be American, like, I'll fight for this country, I want to protect my people, but it's like you're pledging allegiance. So wild. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
morning, place their hands over their heart, face the flag,
And the hand over the heart, like, it's so intimate. It's literally a ritual. Yeah, it's a
and
ritual.
recite a loyalty oath in unison is, by any outside standard, one of the creepiest things about America. I'm not saying this to be edgy. When you describe this practice to people from other democracies, their jaws hit the floor. They associate it with the kind of thing that you would see authoritarian regimes do, not in a country that calls itself the leader of the free world. Because think about what the pledge actually is. It is a feudal fealty oath. It is a declaration of personal loyalty to a state. Now, I understand why elected officials and military personnel swear oaths of service. That makes sense. They're accepting a position of public responsibility. But requiring a 6-year-old to pledge allegiance to a flag before...
Whoa. Really quick, though. Just want to clarify. He said requiring. It's not required. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying, just clarify. When we're kids and we're told to do the Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't do it, you're not in trouble. Government officials aren't going to barge in the door and say, you're not pledging your allegiance. It's not like you can choose to not do it, which some people actually do choose not to do it. So just had to clarify that really quick. It's not required.
Or they can even spell allegiance. It's brainwashing. Like, you realize the founding fathers would be horrified by this, right? These were men who literally threw off the yoke of another red, white, and blue flag when it represented tyranny. They understood and wrote extensively about the fact that it is the duty of every free person to question authority and resist tyranny, not just pledge blind loyalty to a piece of...
How the Pledge of Allegiance used to be done. Okay. The Roman salute. We used to do it with the Roman salute.
Resist tyranny, not just pledge...
Yeah, I mean, you could say that's the, what's it called? I know the Germans called it something different when they did it in Nazi Germany. Not this, is it Sieg Heil, I think? Oh, basically, it's a Roman salute. I didn't know that we used to do that. That's wild. Now they make you put your hand over your heart.
Find loyalty to a piece of cloth. The entire American experiment was built on the idea that governments derive their power from the...
I wonder if they had to get rid of the Roman salute when... That's really bad. I shouldn't be doing that on camera. I wonder if they got rid of that after World War II. Because he said the 1950s, and it was a very old picture. They might have. That's probably when they had to change it. They were like, this is too close. We have to stop doing that. Let's just put their hand over their heart.
...of the governed. And that when a government fails its people, those people have the right and the obligation to challenge it. This is the entire reasoning behind the Second Amendment. Creating mindless, loyal zombies out of children is the exact opposite of what the founders fought for, and yet suggests that we stop doing this in our children's schools and watch how fast you get called un-American. Number 6, the myth that America was founded as a Christian nation. If you've ever driven through the American South, or honestly, large parts of the Midwest and rural America, you've probably seen billboards saying things like, hell is real, abortion is murder.
These are flags. They actually put them up as billboards, and they're I always laugh so hard when I see them. And it's like, oh gosh, I can't even explain it to you guys. Like the abortion ones are one thing when they're like, get help or something. If you're thinking about having an abortion, the Jesus saves you ones, it's like on a billboard when I'm driving on the highway. It's just nuts.
And Jesus saves. They line the highways like wallpaper, so
they really
pervasive
do
that most people stop noticing them. Religious messaging in America is so saturated into the culture that it becomes invisible, which is exactly what makes it so effective. But here's what a lot of Americans don't know. The United States was never a Christian nation. The founders were explicit about this. The Constitution makes zero mention of Christianity or Jesus. The First Amendment enshrines the separation of church and state. The Treaty of Tripoli, unanimously ratified by the Senate in 1797 and signed by President John Adams, states in very plain language that the government of the United States is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion. That is not my interpretation. That is a legally binding document from the founding generation. So, where did the Christian nation myth come from? Well, in keeping with the rest of this video, propaganda. Cold War propaganda, to be specific. Under God was added to the Pledge of Allegiance in 1954. In God We Trust was added to the paper currency in 1957, and adopted as the national motto the year before.
This is all Freemasonry. Anyway, they put the under God, like, I've done a decode on all of our money before, and it's insane. It's crazy.
Added to the paper currency in 1957, and adopted as the national motto the year before. Our original motto, E Pluribus Unum, is more about plurality. Out of many, one. Both of these actions were deliberate moves to contrast the United States against godless communism. They weren't ancient traditions passed down by the founders. They're marketing decisions which were made by politicians in the 1950s. And now, barely 70 years later, millions of Americans will swear on a stack of Bibles that this country was founded as a Christian nation, and that anyone who says otherwise is attacking their heritage.
Yeah, they do it when they do it in if you ever have to go to court, like in all of our courts, you have to swear on the Bible, and then of course, like all of our politicians have to put their hands on it. I don't think they have to. I think if they can choose to do something different, like I think Mamdani put his hand over the Quran, if I'm correct. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if that was true. I think I heard something about that, but yeah, most people do it over the Bible.
Of patriotism with Christianity is itself a product of propaganda, and it's one of the most dangerous because it means that questioning religion in America isn't just seen as blasphemy, it's treason. Number 7, American exceptionalism. This one.
Wait, what did he say there?
And it's one of the most dangerous because it means that questioning religion in America isn't just seen as blasphemy, it's treason. Number 7, American exceptionalism. This one is huge. The one that ties all the rest of it together. American exceptionalism isn't just this belief that America is different. It's a belief that America is inherently superior, better, divinely favored, the greatest country that God ever put on this earth. And it functions not just as a belief, but as a social enforcement mechanism. Because in America, criticism of the country is treated as betrayal. Point out that other nations have better healthcare outcomes, and you're told, well, why don't you just move?
Not so much anymore. I mean, half of the country pretty much hates the U.S. The left, like the Democrats, they're not big fans of the U.S. A lot of them really want to like tear it down. The right is no better on tons of different subjects. But I was even gonna say this about like the Pledge of Allegiance, like making kids do it, like, oh, they're pledging their allegiance, like you're filling these kids' heads with propaganda. And it's pretty wild though, because like most young people are not like rah Americans. Like they are far more left-leaning. America is bad, and it's wild that did they stop doing the Pledge of Allegiance? Maybe that's why. Maybe they stopped doing it in schools, and that's why people are finally starting to have like a different viewpoint. I'm rambling here, you guys. I don't even know if anyone's still watching at this point, but really good, solid video by Holy Kool-Aid, man. This is really good. I enjoy it.
There suggests that the military budget is bloated, and it is bloated, and suddenly you hate our troops. If you point out that Americans rank poorly on education, press freedom, or infant mortality compared to other developed countries, and you're suddenly ungrateful. Even liberals and progressives who critique America specifically because they want to improve it get branded as unpatriotic. Do you see how backwards that is? The messaging is clear. You can love America or you can criticize it. You can't do both. But in most healthy democracies,
I would say that the right is doing a lot more criticizing as of like the last like 3 or 4 years. It's very recent though, and I've noticed it, and I'm like, that's not normal. They normally don't do that.
Critique is understood as a form of patriotism. Wanting your country to live up to its own ideals isn't betrayal. It is the highest form of civic engagement. The pressure to never question America, to treat any criticism as an attack, to reflexively defend the status quo no matter how messed up it is because admitting a problem feels like admitting defeat, that social pressure is itself one of the most effective forms of propaganda there is. Because it doesn't require a government agency or state-run media outlets, it's enforced by your neighbors and your coworkers, your family, and your own internalized guilt. Like I said at the beginning, I don't hate America. I want it to be better. And if that makes me un-American in your eyes, then, well, I think I kind of proved my point. It is the civic duty of every citizen to question what we've been taught, to explore outside the bubble, whether that's through reading, traveling, or learning other languages, using LingoPie, of course, and exposing ourselves to the perspectives that challenge our own assumptions. It's our duty to push back against propaganda and to exercise the very First Amendment rights that we claim to value. Because things don't have to be like this. They can be better. But we have to first recognize the propaganda and be honest with ourselves in order to get there. If you guys enjoyed this video, please smash that.
All right, great video. I think this just goes so much deeper though. Like not even just America focused, but like the governments of the entire world. Yes, I will come out and say it right now. I am one of the people that thinks that like these individual countries aren't just constantly like, they're not individual. They are actually connected in some way. Some people call it a cabal, whatever. You can call me a conspiracy theorist, but it's just, there's too many anomalies to not notice that like, you'll see this like where one country's leader all of a sudden is doing one thing to a different country's leader, and then they're like buddy again. And it's like really awkward and weird. And I'm like, what are y'all really up to? Like, it's, I don't know. I'm going off the deep end. Stay tuned for the conspiracy channel. We'll do that another time. All right. W video from Holy Kool-Aid. I got to give this thing a like, and I'm not subscribed to him. Let me subscribe. Good stuff, man. He put a lot of work in this. Appreciate the recommendation, you guys. Hopefully I didn't piss off too many people. I know anytime I open up and talk a little bit more about me being an American and like our policies and sometimes the way that I think things are, I get a little bit of pushback, but look, if it's deserved, it's deserved, and I'm here for it. I'll always be 100% truthful with you. All right, appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.